2023 Fresh Bites Grown Here, how South Dakota producers are growing their specialty crops. Welcome to SDSPA's 2023 podcast season. I'm your host, Laura Kaler. South Dakota Specialty Producers Association is made up of growers, consumers, and others interested in producing, marketing, and supporting South Dakota specialty crops, meats, and locally made products. This podcast today is made possible through a specialty crop block grant SDSPA received through the South Dakota Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources. This season, our podcast theme is Grown Here, how South Dakota producers are growing their specialty crops. Today, we are looking forward to learning from two South Dakota producers who provide their fellow residents with a summer salad necessity, lettuce. Kent Wilsey of Elk Creek Foods and Peggy Martin of Cedar Creek Gardens will be showing how they produce lettuce on a large scale, while also giving ideas and tips that apply to producers of any size. Kent and Peggy, to start off, can you both introduce yourselves and give our listeners an overview of your farm?
I'm Peggy, and I co-own Cedar Creek Gardens. We're located south of 1880 town, off of I-90. We have a farmer's friend Caterpillar tunnel. We put 200 footers together, so we have a 200-foot tunnel, and we grow lettuce in the whole 200 foot of it. We have actually 3 beds, and they're 24 inches wide, and then the rest is walkways, and we sell it in a variety of markets.
Hi, I'm Kent Wilsey with Elk Creek Foods. We're kind of on a cattle ranch north of Wicksville, just west of Wall. We have 3 greenhouses. One of them we grow almost exclusively hydroponic. The other 2 are traditional soil. The greenhouses are 100 by 30, 100 by 35, and 70 by 30. We grow lettuce and a lot of other crops and sell them at the Black Hills Farmers Market in Rapid City.
Thanks. So it sounds like you both have a lot of room for lettuce. How do you decide which types of lettuce you're going to grow, and how do you get started with that?
The number one, you grow things that people will buy. That sounds strange, but that's what you quickly you try different varieties and you end up with what will people buy. And also, it's climate controlled, but it's not infinitely climate controlled. There are certain times of year you can grow certain things that you can't in other times. We have lettuce varieties that are more bolt resistant, which means they can take more heat, and because when lettuce gets warm, it bolts, it grows really fast, really tall, and tastes terrible. So that's how you decide so that's the 2 things. You decide what you can grow at the time of year that you want to grow it, and what will people buy.
Which varieties have you found people like the most?
Specifically, a lot of our customers like Alkindus lettuce. It's a butterhead that's got a bunch of purple in it. You can't buy it in a grocery store. It tastes great. It looks nice. That's a good one. We grow some heads of green lettuce, that a couple of different varieties. One of our big sellers is a lettuce mix. We just buy from our seed supplier a mix of different varieties of lettuce, put a pinch of seed in each piece of rock wool and grow a bunch of it and sell that by the bag. That's probably our biggest best seller. That's a relatively short term from planting to harvest, and customers love the convenience of a bag of lettuce that makes an awesome salad.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. You need to listen to what your customers want. We grow at Cedar Creek Gardens. We grow a frilly is what we call it. It's a red lettuce, but it's frilly, so it adds a little bit of texture. And then that one we get from Johnny's. It's called Red Sweet Crisp. We also grow Green Star from Johnny's. If we're going with Rupp seeds, we get Bergman's. Another one from Rupp that I really like is the new Red Fire. And then pretty much all of our romaine is Coastal Star, just because it's dark green and it's heat tolerant, and it's just a real nice heavy head when you get done.
I'm really impressed you can grow romaine lettuce. As dumb as it sounds, I've had terrible luck growing romaine lettuce. either bugs get into it or something. So good job.
I think the reason the romaine doesn't work might have to do with because you're doing hydroponics.
I think it's everything that I do wrong. I've failed romaine every way I can think of. It doesn't work well in hydroponics. Either I've let it get too hot, or I've let it freeze, or I get bugs in it, or everything that can go wrong I've done, and it always seems to happen with romaine.
So how do you guys plan for the timing of your lettuce? And how do you stagger that for the summer?
Well,
Early?
early. Well, we start growing in about, we'll start the plants in the pot and shed in February. We try to get them out in March, and we grow until Thanksgiving. And Thanksgiving, we walk away. It doesn't matter what's left in the tunnel. That's the end of our season, and we'll walk away. And a lot of times, even though our tunnels are not heated, we have row covers on them, and we can come back in April a lot of times and harvest. It just depends on the winter. But it takes about 3 weeks in the propagation house, or we call it the potting shed. We don't have fancy terms, but and then it takes about 4 to 5 weeks out in the field. So if you're going to want, we harvest weekly, so every week somebody is starting lettuce. And then we're transplanting. We go in and we don't we just do a one cut. So we cut it, and then that next day it's going to be replanted. That bed will be replanted. So there's always lettuce to go ready, pretty much from April until the end of November.
So do you grow the same varieties that whole time?
Yes, we pretty much stick with we grow like a 2-to-1 ratio of red to green, and then we grow the same ratio of romaine as we go green. So we start about 10 trays a week, and of those we'll do again a 2-to-1 ratio of the red, just so we have some color, and we sell it by the individual head. We don't do the greens, we just or the mixed salad greens, but most people will just grab a head, like at the Black Hills Farmers Market, they'll just grab 1 green, 1 red, and 1 romaine. They mix their own.
And what's your turn time on that from the time the seedling goes in there till harvest, roughly?
From the time the transplant goes in to the ground to that, we try to do 4 weeks. In the summertime, it can be a faster turnaround. In the spring, it's going to be, closer to that 5 week, but yeah, about 4 weeks.
Okay. I wish I were that organized. We tend to plant lettuce when we have a chance to plant lettuce. We harvest it when it's ready, and we hope that the harvest day lines up with the farmer's market day. Usually lettuce has some 4 or 5 days that you can put some wiggle room. We use a little different process. We grow most of our lettuce hydroponically. We'll start it in a Rockwell cube. After 2-3 days, it's sprouted. Somewhere in that 5 to 12 days, then we'll move that into our NFT trays, our nutrient film technique trays, and watch it mature. And we're not as organized. Temperature makes a big difference. Light levels make a big difference on how fast these grow. We just kind of do it when it's ready. And then usually we're harvesting, best case scenario, we're harvesting on Friday and selling on Saturday.
And what months are your season?
We'll probably start planting lettuce here in the next couple of weeks. We'll start harvesting March, April, go as long as we can stand it. After Thanksgiving, it's tough to do much. That's what our season is.
And you both hit on it a little bit before, but could you delve a little bit deeper about starting your lettuce and getting it ready for transplant? Talk to me about your lights, your soil nutrients, or if you're using hydroponics, kind of how you manage everything and get it ready.
Peggy, you want to go first?
Well, we like I said, we have a potting shed, and in that potting shed is It's a room, and both sides are shelves from floor to ceiling, and then we have grow lights in there. And like the biggest challenge is in the summertime because of the high temp. Lettuce will go into a dormant stage. They call it thermal dormancy, and so when it's exposed to real high temperatures, so then to get optimum germination, you want that around 60 to 70 degrees. If you're going to sow it right in the ground, you definitely want it's harder in the summertime if you're sowing right in the ground because the ground temps can be so warm. And then our lights, we spent a lot of time researching what lights, like our grow lights. We have we use 2 different bulbs, and we just have the shop lights, the 8-foot shop lights, but they're LED. And so we will use so we have the red, we have on the 4000, and they're measured in kelvins, and so we'll have a 4000 on one side, and then we'll have like a 5500 to a 6500. So then we get the blue light because you need both the red and the blue. And the more blue light, the more you're going to have stockier plants, shorter plants. So definitely on our tomato row, we will be using those. So yeah, there's a lot of science that goes into it. Even our Pro Mix, we use one with microzyme in it, and because that helps lettuce, it helps in the producing of it. Like our bracas, bracas are one of the few plants that cannot produce their own form of that. So we use the same mix we do for our bracas as we do for our lettuce.
Our process, like I said, we start with a rock wool. Those trays each hold 98, I believe it is, openings for lettuce. So we'll start it in that. We'll put it into what we just have a big enclosed shelf, really, that's surrounded by Lexan, and that's our temperature controlled area. That's where our seeds start. We just make sure they have water at the correct pH for at least a couple weeks until we start seeing true leaves instead of the seed leaves. And then we start putting just a little bit of nutrient in. We use an organic nutrient called Pure Blend Pro Grow. It's expensive, but it works really well. So we start with a really weak nutrient system. As the plant matures, we start adding more, a higher percentage of nutrient, make sure the pH of the water is as close to 7 as we can get it. We also add mycorrhizae to that. It does absolutely help. So we've got that fungus in the water that's being circulated through our NFT trays. I don't use a lot of grow lights. I'm just now investing in grow lights. For the most part, we're talking sunlight. That's worked pretty well for us, at least until the plant's 1.5 inches tall. If we start getting taller plants than that, then they can't get enough sunlight and they start not being healthy plants anymore. And that's when we know we absolutely have to get it spread out more and get it more light to it. For the most part, we're using sunlight.
Yeah, and we only use the grow lights in the early spring or in the later of the fall. But once they pop up out of the seed trays, they go right to the plant tunnel. And the plant tunnel is just an extra high tunnel that we have. But I agree, it's hard to grow under grow lights. And we, have them right down next to the tray. And then as that plant gets up, but they're probably not even a 1/2 inch tall, the lettuce transplants are, before out of that pot and shed they go into the natural sunlight.
Yep. Okay.
Peggy, have you found any tricks to help with transplanting and helping them shift over?
Again, ours are not babied once they come out of the potting shed. They go right into that plant tunnel. And so it's the same environment in the plant tunnel as it's going to be where they're going to live out their happy little lives till we whack up their heads off and ship them off. I mean, they're not babied anyway. I will say though that You know, I've seen a lot of people in their potting sheds, they get that green algae, you know, going on top, and they'll get some dampening off. If you just take a little vermiculite and spread that on the top of your trays, that'll help with that dampening off and that green algae. We always start with a clear dome on top of our transplant trays so the humidity stays in there. That helps with our germination rate. We also use a 98 cell tray, and we get those from Knowles, and they're like, I don't know, they're $130 for 100 of them, I think. And then we just wash and sterilize them and use them over. But we start all of our, you know, our corn transplants, our tomato transplant. Well, no, not our tomatoes. We start those in a 512 and then pot them up. But, you know, our cabbage, our broccoli, our watermelon transplants are all those 98 cells.
But you're doing soil in the 98 cell, right? It's
Correct.
a potting soil? Okay.
Yep, we're using the potting soil. And the potting soil is, again, it's just a, you know, a pro mix blend, and we buy it by the big totefuls. We get it from a greenhouse down by Armor, and we buy it not in the individual bags. We actually buy it, you know, just like your feed for your livestock comes in the big white totes. That's what we get it in because it's just cheaper.
I gotta find your supplier.
Yeah. And so, yeah, we get it, and then we just, you know, fill the trays, and then we have a dibbler. So,
oh, good.
So we have a dibbler, and ours happens to be something that we made. It's just a chunk of stainless steel, and then we used wire nuts, the yellow ones, and we put a screw in it, and so they're all screwed on there, 98 of them, and you just fill your tray and you fill it, and then you water it, and then you push this dibbler in, and it puts all of your holes in, and then it's the exact same depth then every single hole is. I mean, when we first started, you know, we had a little piece of irrigation tubing that we used, and we would poke the individual holes. Well, when you're doing 10 trays a week, you know, which is close to 980 to 1,000 plants, you just don't have time for that. And then we also have a DIY vacuum seeder that we built. And so if you're looking for something, you know, kind of get the idea, you want to look up Farmer Keith on YouTube. And he had the first version, and then he had the second one. And ours wasn't, you know, $50 is what we have invested to our vacuum seeder. And it literally has a vacuum. I mean, I went and got a 5-gallon Shopco vacuum from the hardware store, and that's what pulls all of the seeds into the hole, and then you turn it over and you match it up with your holes that you poked with your dibbler, and you shut the vacuum off, and all the seeds fall into the tray, and you're done. But yeah, Farmer Keith, and he has a lot of other wonderful videos about all kinds of things to watch. But the you know, we used to hand seed it. So I would tell you, if you're hand seeding, definitely go with the pelleted seeds versus, you know, them tiny little lettuce seeds, the pelleted ones. Yeah.
Yep. And I'm hand seeding. We spend a lot of time standing at a bench with a handful of seeds and a tweezer going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's the vacuum seeder sounds like a really good plan.
Yeah, and you can build one literally for under $50. I mean, it's a piece of plexiglass, and you can use the 1020 trays, those black trays that are standard. And you, yeah, if you go Google Farmer Keith on YouTube, and he just has it simplified. And, you know, because we're going to use ours over and over and over again, I finally did have the bottom tray made into stainless steel. But again, I mean, I just, you know, had a local person build it, and I don't think it cost me $50 to have it, just because we were using it so much, you know. But yeah, the vacuum seeder cuts down. But otherwise, I mean, when we first started, you know, it was dropping, like I say, dropping every seed in with the tweezers, and then and you have to keep them, you know, fairly consistent on your transplants. You don't want to overwater them. That's why we use those 98 cell trays. They have a hole in the bottom. And so what we'll do is we'll take that 98 and we'll put it in a 1020. And so it catches the water in our potting shed so that we don't have water all over. And then when we take them to the plant shed, we just, you know, lift the 98 cell out, and away we go. And we do top water our transplants we just use the magic blue wand that, you can buy at any garden store. It's not special.
Where we're growing in the soil, we use a lot of drip tape. Similar thing, just trying to get the soil moist.
Yep. And we use because our tunnel is landscape fabric, and we burned all of the holes so that we're not constant, and because we don't want to grow in the dirt right on the dirt, because then you just have the whole other issue of having to wash it and try to keep the slugs out of it and everything. So our tunnel is 15-foot wide. So we went to Knowles and we got a 15-foot wide landscape fabric, and it runs the whole length of it. And we burned permanent holes, and that made our walkways and everything. And then we used in our lettuce tunnel, it's the only tunnel that we have that has overhead irrigation. And we bought the irrigation kit from Farmer's Friend when we bought our tunnels. And the reason we use the overhead is because then if it's a 100-degree day, we can turn it on to mist, and we can get that lettuce cooled down. I mean, 5-10 minutes, and you can see a 15-degree temp drop. And that's going to help slow all of that bolting that you'll see a lot of times in the summer. And we do spray our tunnels. We used to put shade cloth on. It's a lot of dollars for those shade cloths, and it's a lot of labor to put them on and off. And now there's a product called Cool Ray that you can buy from Knowles, and a 5-gallon pail is like $100, and that'll do all 8 of we have 8 high tunnels all together, and it'll do the whole thing. And literally, Bud, the 4-wheeler sprayer that you spray weeds with, he will put that in there, and because it's got a big wand and you can shoot it a long ways. And so we'll thin it down to get 30% coverage, and then we will cover that lettuce tunnel, and that will drastically keep the heat temp down in there. Good. And then we'll also, again, because labor is, I mean, you can tell you there's a lot of labor that goes into lettuce, but I mean, it's worth it. But we'll turn that on at night, like, in the summertime, it doesn't get dark till 10 Central Time. So we'll turn that on about 9:30, and then it'll wash that lettuce for us. Then overnight it will dry it, and the next morning it's pretty much clean. We used to pull them out, and now we just twist them off, and then we'll come back in and just plant right around that. You
don't cut them. You twist them rather than cut them, huh?
We twist them. We twist them off, and so the root ball stays in there. And then when we come back to plant, it just kind of moves over to the side. So then we're adding green manure, because the root ball is still there. It still is adding to that soil. Yep.
Down in there's a worm colony that's just fabulous.
Yeah, there is, and there's a slug colony sometimes too. And so then
that's not so good.
Yeah, then we'll have to use some copper to get rid of those slugs.
Kent, what are some tricks and systems you've developed for harvesting?
Ours frequently gets packed. Like I said, we cut on a Friday typically. We'll be frantically packing lettuce. Saturday and Friday night, we'll bring it. It depends on the outside air temperature. If it's really hot, especially with the lettuce mix, we'll cut that and immediately put it into potable cold water, and then that gets taken from there into the packing shed and properly rinsed, and any bad leaves taken out of it if we can catch them. And it gets frequently then it gets put in a lettuce spinner to get the excess water off, and then we'll pack it in bags. If it's warm in our packing shed, then it goes into a refrigerator overnight. It's not as sophisticated as what Peggy says. I really admire that you have a walk-in cooler, it sounds like, and that would be wonderful. That's on my short list of investments to happen soon.
Well, and I will just inject there that, the walk-in coolers, we have one fancy one because that's all we could afford, but we have 3 other ones, and they're cool bots. I mean, they're just cool bots we went to a truck salvage, and we bought ice boxes off of the trucks that were at the salvage yard, and then we just took the units that were off of them and we slapped in CoolBots. And for those of you that don't know, a CoolBot is a device that you can buy from Store It Cold, and it attaches to a household air conditioner that will then be able to take it down to a 30 to 40 degree temp. So yeah, ours isn't our lettuce one isn't fancy. It's just a box and a CoolBot. Coolers run right at 34 to 35 is where we keep it. And we can keep, lettuce for 2 weeks without getting that brown rusty on it, because we'll cut it and we'll just pack it into the box, and we put a plastic bag, food safe, garbage bag, and then we'll put it into that bag, and the next day then we ship it off.
That's all you need. Things we've done is stacked up boxes of our lettuce mix, and then on top we put a box that's full of ice, and it keeps the stack cool. If you're really, really broke, that can work for at least overnight.
Mm-hmm. Kent, you mentioned using a salad spinner, and I'm imagining my little household one and how long it would probably take to prep everything for the farmer's market. Do you have a larger scale salad spinner, or what do you use?
We have a restaurant scale salad spinner. It's about 2 feet in diameter and 2 feet tall, but still we're processing a long time when you're talking about 150 bags of lettuce, because a bag of lettuce, that salad spinner processes about 5 to 10 bags of lettuce at most. So yeah, it still takes us a lot of time, and we've got to find more efficient ways of doing things. I've heard of people using old washing machines and all sorts of things, but I was really worried about sanitation, so I went with a restaurant unit. It's hand cranked. You just fill it full and put the lid on and turn the crank, and it goes and centrifugal force spins the water out of it. We only use that for our lettuce mix, and it makes a nice product. That's why we charge quite a lot for that silly lettuce mix, because it gets handled a lot before it's done.
Kent, do you guys have the bubbler, like the tank with the bubbler in it? The PVC bubbler that you just put air in, so it when you throw it in there to wash it again there. I mean,
nope.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we just have a triple sink.
Yep.
It gets sorted in the first sink, and then it gets sanitized real quick in the second one, and then rinsed in the third.
And how do you dry yours?
With the salad spinner.
With the salad spinner? Yeah.
That's the lettuce mix.
Yep, on there. Yeah, we have one of those converted washing machines, and we have separate baskets. And then the basket comes out, it's just the orange basket, and yeah, we sanitize that when we're done, and then we put it back in the washing machine, and all the guts are out of the washing machine. There's no tub or anything. It just goes in there, and then we have a lid that shuts it. So yeah, we do have one of them. And matter of fact, South Dakota Specialty Producers, was it 2 years ago, Laura? I think we had a green spinner workshop, and then we also had the root washer workshop. And you could build your own, and we actually purchased kits for anybody that attended, so they got all of what they needed, and then a hands-on instructions on how to build them.
That would be handy.
Yeah, I'll have to look. If you reach out to SPA, we can probably look up who across the state or closest to you might have one that you could look at.
Yeah.
So, Kent, you grow in soil and the hydroponics, correct, for your lettuce?
Right. Lettuce is pretty much all hydroponics. We've tried in soil and had poorer luck, probably because I didn't have all of Peggy's tricks with covering the soil and the wonderful experience she's got. The trick is keeping the water fresh, keeping the temperature appropriate, keeping the pH right, and keeping the nutrient mix right. And then keeping insects out of it, because they just happen. As tight as you try to make the tunnel, insects get in. There's just no way around it. And since I'm trying very hard not to use harsh pesticides. We fight insects a lot.
I was surprised up until this point, neither of you have mentioned insects, so I was wondering how you avoid them. But Peggy, what do you do to deal with pests?
We have insect netting on like low tunnels. And so we will put those on and then tip them off to harvest. And
Okay.
yeah, you're correct. I mean, overnight you could have an
Aphids.
aphid infestation. They're just horrible. And I mean, you've got to be due diligent. You've got to have, your yellow sticky tags out and constantly be looking and, looking for that. And then if you get something, there are some products out there. Some of them are OMRI approved, some are not. And we're like Kent, we try to grow organically as possible. So a lot of times, I mean, we've had to throw it. The one day when, I mean, we threw, probably, I don't even know how many feet it was. It was a lot. It was sickening. It was a 5 o'clock beer day.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure we got till 5 o'clock, but yeah, it was like, oh my goodness gracious. Yeah. The aphids are horrible.
We use a lot of neem oil, and we are on a constant subscription for ladybugs. We use a lot of ladybugs in our high tunnel to try to control aphids. Seems to work pretty well. Those guys really go after the aphids. You can tell when the aphids are kind of thing out because the ladybugs stop, they disappear.
That is correct. We have the same thing. We used to grow it in a different tunnel that had screening on the side, so then the ladybugs, were kind of trapped in there. And it'd be so, like all of a sudden there would be, I mean, and when I'm talking about ladybugs, like 5,000 of them that we would buy, and they'd come and you just let them out at night so they'd stick around. And and then pretty soon you wouldn't see any ladybugs, and you know that your aphid problem was gone.
Yep.
Do you have to restock the ladybugs throughout the season?
Yep.
Okay.
Like I said, we're practically on a subscription. About every 2 months, we're getting a shipment of ladybugs in, and hopefully, you see the little ladybug larvae, the little alligators running around. But that also means that you still have aphids if they're running around. But all around the high tunnels, we see ladybugs now, and you keep resupplying.
Mm-hmm. What about weeding with your lettuce? What do you guys do for that?
We don't grow in dirt. We don't weed. we don't. We just grow and that's why we put down the landscape fabric, because especially if you're trying to do the salad mixes, and you're growing right in the dirt, the weeds are going to come, and you're again too labor intense to make $1. Yeah, when we first started, we grew in the ground and we grew outside, and putting it in the tunnel in the landscape fabric was a game changer. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's so much cleaner. I mean, there's just 100 reasons to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in the hydroponic NFT trays. The weeds aren't an issue. That tray is 3 feet off the ground. You don't get weeds in there. It's just an opening 3 inches in diameter that plant's growing out of, just similar to Peggy's hole in her cloth.
Do you guys have any tricks or thoughts that you'd want to share about how you market your lettuce?
You can't compete with Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
Don't try to grow. I would highly recommend don't try to grow iceberg lettuce, because it's just too cheap, and you can't grow a product that's better significantly than that. You want to look for things that are a little different, preferably things that are eye-catching, good taste. Those things will come back. Those things bring customers back. It makes a nice looking salad that's different than what you buy in a bag at Walmart.
Kent, have you ever tried any of those Salvanova from Johnny's?
Yes, we did try them last fall. They're beautiful. They sold really well.
Yes.
They want a lot for the seeds. They really want a lot for the seeds.
So
they're proud of them, but they do sell really well, and it grew hydroponically beautiful.
It does, but what do you think of the taste?
It tastes like lettuce.
Does it? Yeah, we grew them. Yeah, we grew them for 1 year, but there's no weight to them. And one of our biggest vendors, we sell by the pound. And so it was making those cost a lot. And then in the middle of the summer, the taste just was like blah. And so that's why we went back to the Green Star, or we went to the Bergman's. And that red sweet crisp, that it is a brand of Nova, but it's not the butter type. It's the frilly type. And that one, that's probably, yeah. And that red. I wish the green was as heat tolerant and cold tolerant as the red, but it's not. But that red, yeah, that's a champion.
That's what we tried last fall, and I will be planning again, is the red Saladova frilly red stuff. Yep. It's got it hits all the buttons. It tastes good. It looks fantastic. You can't buy it at Walmart. That's a winner from our point of view.
And that one is specifically called Red Sweet Crisp, and that one is from Johnny's.
Yep.
And if you're into Roops, then it's New Red Fire, because those are the main two suppliers that we get from. And so I'm sure other vendors have them, but they're definitely, and we get the pelleted ones.
Yeah, pelleted costs more, but boy, it's a whole lot easier to deal with. Lettuce seeds, if anybody's listening and doesn't know, lettuce seeds are tiny. They are little tiny things. A pelleted seed is that tiny seed encapsulated in a little glob of clay, and it works great.
Mm-hmm. What other tips and tricks do you guys have? I feel like both of your brains are filled with so much knowledge that I don't even know which questions to ask. But is there any catastrophes that you've had that you'd like to warn others based on what you learned?
All of the above. I had my, of course, I'm growing hydroponically. Last year, I had a disaster. I have this automatic pH control system that's based on a pH meter that, it's automatically continuously sensing the pH of the water that's flowing through the system, and it's adding acid as it needed, because around here our water's kind of basic. It's hard water. Unbeknownst to me, that sensor had gone bad, and it was just dumping acid in there, and it destroyed everything, just burnt everything to a crisp, and I could not figure out for the longest time what was going on. That was a disaster last year. Another disaster, of course, is it just gets too hot and everything bolts. That's enough to make a person cry. Aphids are a disaster. Go away for a day and not know that a water line broke and emptied the tank, and everything didn't get watered for a whole day, and everything's dead. That's a classic hydroponic disaster. That soil people don't have that. It's either wet or it's, it can last a day or two without getting water if it has to. There's just no, in the NFT type system, there's no water retention. It's just water flowing past their roots. So it's, let's see, what other disasters have we had? Those are the big ones.
Well, that's enough. But we did have a hydroponic system, and you're right, it drove me nuts. The pump. And then it was the lights, and then it was like, okay, the pH is off, because again, we have one, and we had, I don't know, it was probably a 15 foot, 10 by 15 foot rack, and then we had the trays in there. We did it 1 year, and we still have that thing, and I'm like, no, we're not doing that, no more. No.
We got started with hydroponics because water is an issue here. We really don't have quite enough water for what we're producing. I've looked into getting another well, but oh my gosh, they want a lot of money to drill a well. That's why we ended up with hydroponics to start out with. And we use about 300 gallons of water a week in our hydroponic system, and we use about 1,000 gallons a day in our soil tunnels. So that's why we had to use hydroponic.
Yeah, I will say that our nutrient, the way that we feed them, again, it's not fancy. It's an injector, and it's a Dactron, and it has a little hose, and it's got a little stone on it, and we put it in the 5-gallon bucket, And then we know that it's 1 scoop of this and 2 scoops of that, and we use a blend for our nutrients, and then we run it. Because our tunnel is 200-foot long, we have it divided into 2 zones, 200-foot zones, because you have to have a certain amount of water pressure to get those wobblers going in the irrigation. And so we don't have enough water pressure. So we water 100-foot, and then we turn it off and water the other 100-foot. And we do that at night, again, because that'll help wash it and it's cooler. And, you go turning that hose on in the middle of the day, and, you throw cold water on a hot lettuce plant, you can end up with some boiled Kleenex stuff. But again, what we'll do is, if we're going to, we need to cool the tunnel down, we'll go turn the hydrant on and make sure that, and flush that line, because we have an exterior hose to it, so the water doesn't go through the wobblers. It can go out and just spray on the ground, so then we can turn them on, and we'll miss that. And that, again, that's one of the things that's key, is keeping that lettuce cool so it doesn't bolt, because the thing that'll make it bolt the fastest is the heat.
Yep.
So my final question for you is a tricky one, especially to think about today in January, but 6 months from now, you guys want a salad. What things are you putting on for your dream salad?
The works. Mushrooms, cucumbers, tomatoes, green peppers.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I love our lettuce mix. The red frilly lettuce that Peggy mentioned is great. Alkindus lettuce works great. It gives you this nice purple stuff. I would put some kale in it also. And yeah, if our mushroom vendor can give me some mushrooms, those are good. Cucumbers, tomatoes, sweet peppers are nice. Breadcrumbs, bacon.
Sounds delicious.
Bacon.
Yeah, bacon. And because we both attend the Black Hills Farmers Market, Alan from Black Hills Mushrooms, that's the bomb. I mean,
oh my gosh.
Huge shout out to Alan. He has wonderful mushrooms.
Now you have us excited for summer and even more reasons. But and the Black Hills Farmers Market, that one goes through the winter though, correct?
It does.
So the mushrooms are maybe available now.
Yes, they are. At least they were at our last one in December. They were. And
perfect.
I wish everybody in my family loved mushrooms as much as I did.
Great.
We'll be there Saturday. We'll be selling beef, no lettuce, not yet. Another thing you might think about that we didn't touch. The other product that we do that's even shorter is microgreens. Peggy, do you ever grow microgreens?
We have, mainly as chicken fodder. I mean, we grow them for our chickens all the time, but no, we don't. Just because there's another company that we deal with, and so we let them do the microgreens, and because that's their niche marketing. So, but yeah, there is some dollars to be made in the microgreens, but again, we just grow them for chicken fodder.
Can you talk a little bit about your experience with microgreens?
Okay, early in the season, like right now, if I want a product to sell, I've messed up and not planned things well, and I want something to sell in 2 weeks. I can grow microgreens, which is just a lettuce mix. Actually, it's a brassica mix that you grow on a mat, and it takes about 2 weeks to go from putting seeds down to harvesting your microgreens. That makes a really delicious salad. And you're mentioning the salads triggered me to that. If you really want to get fancy, you do a microgreen salad. That's a nice product. There are people who are really interested in that, and I can grow that I can nearly grow it in my windowsill in my house. But there is a market for that. The profits are okay. But the nice thing is it's just something green in the wintertime that you can present.
Can you use your hydroponic system for that too?
No, I don't. I just use a basic tray with a mat in the bottom of it. You moisten the mat, you spread the seeds over it, keep it warm, and those things sprout. They're not even up to a true leaf yet. They're usually, when you harvest them, then there's just a seed leaf. It's 1.5 inches, 2 inches tall.
But what a great way to have fresh salad in this winter.
Super fresh in the winter. That is a nice little niche product. I've sold it both harvest it and put it in a container, or just cut the mat and sell it and let people harvest it themselves when they're ready. That's a small variation on lettuce that is popular in certain groups. And if you want the ultimate salad, that's what you do.
Wonderful. Thanks.
And there are different mixes of microgreens for whether you want it like a bunch of radishes so it's spicy, or it's just brassicas that are mild and they're nice.
Great. That's something to look forward to as well. Well, thanks, Kent and Peggy, for visiting with us today and sharing all of your knowledge and tips. If anyone listening wants to learn more, you both have Facebook pages, correct? For Elk
Yes,
Creek Foods and Cedar Creek Gardens?
Yep.
Correct.
Wonderful. So they can check that out. And I'm sure that your contact information is there. And if they've got questions to reach out, right?
Absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in to the South Dakota Specialty Producers Association podcast. Until next time, keep growing.